Blog Talk Radio.
Fulfill Radio, a voice you can trust. Broadcasting live presents Two Guys and a Bible with Don Preston and William Bell. Join us each week at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central as we bring you exciting, sound, challenging, and comforting messages regarding the end times. Thank you for tuning in today. Don Preston is the founder of Preterist Research Institute, or PRI. Don is a prolific author, having written and published 19 books, a host of audio and DVD studies, and is a debater and defender of the full preterist view. His websites are BibleProphecy.com, Eschatology.org, and DonKPreston.com. William Bell is the founder of AllThingsFulfilled.com Ministries and has a website bearing the same name, and has authored 3 books, audios, and DVDs. He has published hundreds of articles and recordings. And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Two Guys and a Bible broadcast with Don Preston and William Bell. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Two Guys and a Bible right here on Fulfill Radio. I am William Bell, and with me and back today, feeling much better, is my illustrious co-host, Dr. Don Preston. We are delighted to be with you today, and it is good that we can share some time together. We've been apart for over a month, and he was ill for the past week or so, but is doing much better today, and so we're glad to have him. I will ask you to say just a little bit, Don. I know you are trying to preserve that voice with all the work that you do with it, but at least kind of give us an update on how you're doing, what's happening in your world a little bit, and then we'll say a few things about, what has gone on since you and I talked.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, it's great to have you back from Ghana safely. And I'm very, very much looking forward to hearing a report. I know that you said you gave a report on the program last week, but I spent about a week curled up in the fetal position on the couch, just wishing everything would go away. And pardon me, I had strep throat, which was my very first time ever, and I would like to say I'm hoping it's my last time ever. Never had anything like that before. My wife, bless her heart, has had it many, many, many times, and so this gives me a greater understanding for the suffering that she went through. But the strep settled in my larynx and in my vocal cords, and my voice is still exceedingly weak. I'm not able to do much speaking at all, and so William will be able to do the bulk of the talking tonight. This is what happens when I try to talk very much. I start coughing. But anyway, other than that, I am, as far as feeling better, I'm feeling much, much better, thankfully. Things are continuing to progress. Exciting things happening literally all over the globe, of new contacts, great correspondence, wonderful, wonderful feedback from folks who watch our YouTube videos and our Now TV. And, William, we post my Now TV programs on YouTube, and for one of the very first times, now mind you, this is YouTube video viewership. This is not worldwide viewership. This is strictly YouTube, but I've reached over 1,000 views on my YouTube video from last Friday, and it's still going up and going up. So, look, I well recognize that's not what you would call viral, but when you're averaging 500 to 600 views, and then all of a sudden you reach 1,000 plus and growing, then you know that good things are definitely happening. And the positive comments continue to come in, and we're just extremely thankful for the way things are going and growing. Insofar as the audience is concerned, insofar as the reception is concerned, and lots and lots and lots of good things happening. But again, it's great to have you back, and great to be back on the program, even though, like I said, I'm not going to be able to talk very much. So I'm just going to turn it back over to you and sit back and listen as you give us a report on your trip to Ghana.
Okay. Well, again, welcome back to you, and I hope that, you get some rest for your voice. I know that that's a pretty good challenge, but it is exciting to hear that things are still growing, and the views that you're getting on your YouTube channel is excellent. It's always good to, hit that 4-figure number when you're, putting out material and people are responding to it. So that's very excellent. And I know the work that you do and the volume of work that you do. And, I've heard many people just talk about how in awe they are about how much content you produce. I can't think of anybody who is producing as much content as you are, and not just in volume, but in extremely good quality. So that's very good. And now that, people are beginning to hear more about it through all of these channels, the YouTube channel, the Facebook, and with the Now TV, et cetera, it's just, expanding and spreading. And so to hear the response that comes from that is excellent. And, we just keep rolling forward. Well, I don't want to, sound like a broken record from some of the things that took place, during the month I was gone to Ghana, but, I will share some other things. I know you probably didn't get a chance to hear some of that, but it was a great trip. I'm very, very thankful for the opportunity to make the journey and to do it safely. This time out, I decided to choose a different airline, and I'm grateful that I did that as well, because I had been listening to some of the travel reports, especially in view of the COVID-19 virus and the, new outbreaks that they were having in Europe, et cetera. So it seemed as though things might be a little bit precautious in terms of, what might happen in some of those places. So I was a little bit leery about it, and I said, I think I want to try a different way. So when I talked to the people, in the airline reservationists, they suggested that I might try Ethiopian Airlines. And I had some friends who had, flown that several times. And so I said I would do that. But they don't have Ethiopian Airlines out of Memphis. They don't fly into Memphis. So I had to go to D.C. in order to do that. So I, had to schedule a flight independent of the trip to Accra just to go to where I could, get on the flight. And it was good that it turned out that way, because I went to my doctor after I returned. I had to go for my sleep apnea because my machine malfunctioned while I was in Ghana. Yeah, it's interestingly enough, it would start off, in the regulated breathing and airflow that it's designed to do. And then about the time I fall off to sleep, it kicks into high gear and is blowing air everywhere, all up my nose and everything. I can't keep my mouth closed. And so I tried several times to sleep with it. And finally I just trashed it. I said, forget it. I can't use it. And so after I got back, I went to the doctor to see about getting a new one. And I had to go, through the doctor in order to get authorization for it. But he was telling me at the time that he had some patients or friends who had flown through Europe. The first time I went, I think I flew through Paris, the second time through Amsterdam, and then the last time through Brussels. And each time, it was a little bit of a layover, and also just a few issues with getting cleared, but nothing major. But he told me that some of the people who went through, and I can't remember where he said, whether it was Brussels, I think it was Brussels, but he said they really had some issues there. And I was very, very thankful that I didn't, choose one of the standard airlines to go, because we had absolutely no problems flying Ethiopian Airline. And it was actually a very pleasant experience. The hostesses and stewardesses and everything was very nice. The flight was very nice. The only issue is, I mean, man, it takes you what? Maybe somewhere around 11 hours to get from the U.S. to Accra if you fly straight. Maybe even less than that. But they take you halfway around the world just to get there. You know, either you're going to go through Europe and hit one of those places that I mentioned, or you know, like in this case, we flew to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and it would have been great if I could have stopped there and you know, met with what's his name, Makonnen.
Makonnen Tadesse, yes.
Yeah, and spoke with him, but you know, of course, we didn't have that time to get off the plane. It was just a layover for about an hour or so. But and so going, you know, was fine. And unfortunately, after I got there, you know, as you know, my phone got stolen. After I think I had been there just maybe 10 days or less when that happened to me, and so I lost all my contact information. Fortunately, you know, I had a backup, and I had a backup phone, and then I went and got another little. What I would call a little toy phone, you know, just something so I could stay in communication. And that helped me, you know, get through the time. So I was walking around with this little phone. And the fortunate thing about in Ghana, of course, I've seen one phone here, but, you know, they allow you to have phones there with 2 SIM cards in them. So for every phone you get, and I think it was one phone I bought had 3. Well, it was more of a data card or something in it, but 2 SIM cards. So you can actually have 2 phone numbers with the same phone. And yeah, so that's pretty cool. I've just ordered a replacement phone for the one that I lost, and fortunately, it has 2 SIM cards in it. Now, I don't know whether that's advantageous for being here in the States, because you'll have to pay for those 2 lines probably the same way, you know, which would be quite expensive. But in Ghana, you know, you buy the service, like what do they call it, an MTN or something like that, or Vodafone, and you just pay for so much time, and then once you use that time up, you go back and pay more. And it's not that expensive. You know, you're paying about $1 sometimes, or $2 of U.S. money, and you can talk quite a bit on that. And also, you have to do the same thing to surf the internet. You know, you have to have that service. So I actually broke down and bought a modem, so because I needed to access the internet, and some places you go, they just don't have wireless, and so I was able to at least be able to do that in any place that I went. You know, so because even some of the hotels that you stay in may not have wireless, or it goes out a lot because of the, you know, electricity issues sometimes that they have there with power outages. So that's how I was able to survive that, and yeah, that made it okay. Now, in terms of the work there, I spent some time in the Volta region with a gentleman by the name of William Potamy, and we've been working together for a while. We actually met on Facebook, and so he has quite a bit going on there, and so we're working to put some things together. I actually got a chance to sit down with him, talk to him about eschatology, and wow, he was sold and totally excited. I mean, it was like the light bulb popped on. He said, "Oh man," he said, "we're just really teaching some bad stuff here. We got to correct this." And so he told me, he said, "You know, I want you to start sending me lessons. We need to study this," and we did. And he says, "Now I know that I have to be a little careful. And so I'm not going to, you know, take it directly to the older people necessarily, you know, some of the elderly people. But he says the young people, he says, we're going to get after it." And he's about a middle-aged man, maybe in his 40s, has a handicap. I think his leg was injured when, you know, but he's a farmer. He works hard. He runs a school of about 400 students or more, and you know, farms every day, and then does a bunch of other stuff, and then works out in the community. And right now, where we're working to start this congregation, there are about 3 communities right there, and there's no church in the area. So that's what we're working on doing. And he's already on board with the eschatology. And so that's going to make it easy. We have another young man who's a preacher in the area, but we're still having to teach him and, sort of get him on board with some things. But he's a bright young man and very pleasant. He's actually from Nigeria, and but has come to Ghana, and he sort of liked Ghana. And then he went out to where William is, and he kind of likes that place. So he's been hanging out there. But, we've helped him along a little bit. I met him, actually, the first time I went to Ghana. We rode on a bus together to a town called Sunyani. And he sat beside me and kind of, instructed me where to get off the bus, et cetera, because I was going to a place totally unknown. And then the next day, we happened to meet in the restaurant. And that's why we kind of struck it up with each other. It was just the by chance meeting that he walked in the restaurant, I walked in the restaurant, and there we were. And so we've been talking ever since. So we, have made friends, but he's been kind of working along with it. So he goes out in the community with William. They work in the community, and it's quite exciting with what he's doing. And there's just a lot of opportunity there, a tremendous amount of opportunity, a lot of, humble people willing to listen, willing to learn. And, of course, they have other, basic needs that need to be addressed as well. But those are some of the things that we are working on. I have a heart for children, as you know, in terms of especially seeing them when they are lacking. And, that's how I met Apoku, who was a young lady, and she's doing fine. She has really blossomed.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about her.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, I'm going to say some things about her. But anyway, this other family that lives near William. So we were out, and we were crossing the River Volta to look at one of the locations where we're going to, we've already started actually. The process for putting up a building there, and we were headed, I think, to one of his fields, his watermelon field that he's got over there. He's like I said, farms several crops over there, and so I passed this little. It looked like a hut, but it wasn't quite a hut. I mean, it had grass roof, but it was not much of that. Probably had a wall that was about 24 inches high, if that, a dirt floor, and it probably was no wider than about a 6x6, if that much. I can't really say. There are 6 kids living in that place, sleeping on the ground. Oh. They sleep on a knapsack or whatever you call it, like you use for a bag of corn or whatever, and that's their bed. And, of course, when it rains on them. They don't have adequate clothes. They're not in school. Both parents are dead. And just recently, a lady from the neighborhood came and started preparing food for them. They drink water from a creek or river, and it's dirty water. And it's really, really tough. So he had sent me pictures of them before I got there. And, and I've sent food over there for them and something for, to get them some clothes and everything, but it still wasn't adequate. And he does things for them too. So we happened to be riding on motorcycles one day. We both were going to his farm, and he said, "Can you ride on the back of a motorcycle?" I said, "Oh, yeah." And so we both got on the back of a motorcycle. We were just riding down the path, and we rode past them. And I looked, and I saw them. I said, "That looks like those kids." And I just said that in my mind. And when we got to the field where he was about to harvest some watermelons from his field. He said, "Did you notice that place back there?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Looks like it's those kids." He said, "That's exactly who they are." He said, "That's where they live." And I mean, we rode within about 10 feet of them, and but we were on the back of a motorcycle, so it wasn't that much time to really look in and see them, but you could see straight through the house. So I've talked to my brothers. I've got 3 brothers and a cousin, and of course my nephew. And so we're going to build them about a 2-room little house. Now, the land on which they are was land owned by their parents, so they have that. But we also have access to another piece of land that might be closer to a school. And William said that if we can get them in that, and that we can, and we can get them access to clean water, get them off the ground, et cetera. And it won't cost us that much to do that. We've got a contractor over there already. So we're going to build them, a couple of rooms that will be adequate enough to house them. And as long as that lady who's taking care of them will continue to, cook for them and things like that, I think we can manage to make their lives better as well. And of course, my brothers are all aboard in terms of saying that we don't want to just, put them in a place. We're going to help educate them as well. So
sure.
that was one experience that came out of it. I got a chance to see them, and it's just touching, man. It really is to do that. But knowing, William, who runs a school, and they have this opportunity to teach these kids the gospel and influence them, and his school really thrives. I mean, he's got some dedicated teachers. It's not an elaborate building. You just have to see the buildings in Ghana, the school buildings for the most part. But they got a roof over their heads, and they got classrooms. It's quite airy, if you please, because it's, this open, airy place. But the kids are so disciplined. They're very organized. They're very mannerable, et cetera, and they seem to be very serious about learning. And so he's going to bring them into that environment when the time is right, and that'll probably make a huge, huge difference in their lives. So that was the good thing about that. I spent about a week in his area, and we're making plans, like I said, to do some other things, and it looks very good. As a matter of fact, I'm in the process of setting up a nonprofit there, and we were working on that today, trying to get all the paperwork done. I spent some time the last few days I was there, down at the registrar's office and everything, but I couldn't get everything done. So he's going to be the point man for me over there. And if we can get that going, then we'll be able to do even more and keep everything organized. So I'm excited about that. It's a lot of work, but man, it is fulfilling, thrilling, and you can almost see the results immediately from what you do, when you help some of the people there. And so that's kind of how that went. And so from that point, the next place I went was up to Opoku's area. And so we went there and stayed about maybe 3 or 4 days in that particular area. And I was just impressed. She was a lot more comfortable with me this time than before, because we talk, on the phone and share messages and everything on the phone, and pictures and videos occasionally. And just to see her, how she's grown and how much more poised and developed she is from where she was when I first saw her lying on that porch is amazing. She's very bright and intelligent. And this was the clincher. When I got there, she came to the hotel, and I asked, it was on a Sunday, and I asked her, it was that evening, and I said, okay, did you go to church? And says, yes. I said, well, tell me what the preacher talked about. And at first, neither one could say what the preacher talked about. And then finally, they said the second coming of Christ. I said, oh, really? And I said, yes. And I said, well, tell me, what did the preacher say? Again, silence. Couldn't think of anything. It's almost like you get out of the pulpit sometimes. You can walk from the front of the door to the back of the door and ask what you preached about. And right. And you can't get an answer. People are like, duh, I don't know what he just talked about. Right. But anyway, so I said, okay, well, let me just ask you some questions, and you tell me if this is what he said. Well, Don, I think I rolled off about 6 or 7 questions in a row of what the preacher talked about. I said, well, did he say there was going to be a rapture based on 1 Thessalonians 4? They said, yes. I said, did he say Jesus was going to come in the clouds? Yes. Did he say he was coming soon? Yes. I mean, just one question after the other. And it was so funny because I gave them basically the whole outline of the preacher's sermon.
Yeah.
On the return of Christ. But then after that, I said, look, I've been teaching on this subject for about 40 years. I said, let me just share a few things with you. And so I started to give some illustrations based on time statements, et cetera, to explain to them how those events could not be in our future. Well, Apoko listened very, very carefully. And once I made the illustration, I asked her, I said, do you understand what I've just said? She says, of course. She said, there's no way they could be talking about something in the future when these statements say that this was soon to happen and it was at hand and blah, 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 blah. I mean, she gave it right back to me and made her own illustration to demonstrate how well she understood what I said. Now, I don't expect her to have it all and to have comprehended that in that one little meeting. But it definitely told me how bright she is, and with some continued, reinforcement of those things, that she could really get it and would understand it. So that was
awesome.
That was really, really exciting to me to have that conversation with her. I was very proud of her. And
well, I don't
she
blame you. She, I know from the very beginning of the story of when you saw, as you mentioned a moment ago, when you saw her sleeping on a porch and you told the story, she had no food. She barely clothed. She was just, totally dependent on anyone having a little bit of mercy on her. And so with the help that you've been able to provide, and with Solomon, I think it was Solomon, was it not, that also has helped her?
No. She's in a different area than Solomon.
Okay. Okay. But the point of fact is, with just a little bit of help, what you're pointing out is how quickly she has blossomed into a self-confident, evidently much, much, much happier young woman with a great intellect and the ability to learn and assimilate. And this will only help her to grow into a marvelous young woman.
Yes.
It's really exciting.
Yes, it really is. And so that was pretty much the situation there. And then I left from there to go back to Accra, maybe stayed there a couple of days. And from there, I headed to Cape Coast, where Solomon was. And that's where I spent the most time. So we went to service with him on 2 occasions. I know we had one baptism the last Sunday that I was there. Part of that trip was, there's a lot of research that I was doing. And so we took a sort of a long trip to another town. But other than that, we spent time with him, talking to people in the congregation. And so they're doing fine. Of course, Solomon and them are very eager to launch a building program themselves, because right now they're working in I think it's a school, but they don't know. I mean, it could be any day that, the people tell them they can't use it anymore. And that's a big concern for them. It's a major concern for them. The good thing about it is it doesn't take a huge amount of money for them to, build a modest building. And so that's something that, we're looking into in order to help them to help themselves along the way. But, so much good can be done. There's another young man there working with them now. He's very bright. As a matter of fact, he calls me uncle, calls me his uncle, and I call him nephew. But his father is also one of Solomon's right-hand men, so they work very closely together in the congregation. But this young man, who used to be at another congregation, has come to help his father and to help out in the congregation. And I was just totally impressed with him. He's very intelligent. He's a barber, by the way. And it was the first haircut I got in Ghana when I went there the first time. But he's very articulate, just very poised as a young man, mature in his thinking. And I took him a ton of books when I went over there, the time that I carried a bunch of books from you, et cetera. But I also had another batch of books on personal development, et cetera, because he was asking me questions, and I was, telling him that if you'll take these books and read them, I said, it'll help you, your mindset and perspective, because I was trying to help him to just kind of open his perspective, because they kind of live in a fishbowl, in a sense. They kind of live in a box, some of them, that all they see is basically what's around them, and they don't realize just how much potential, how much opportunity that they have, because this is all they've seen for the most part. And so they think that their life is just limited to what's right there around them, whereas a person who comes from the outside and looks at that situation can see a lot more than what they perceive, and because they have limited resources and everything compared to us, not that we have a lot, but compared to us, the resources are so limited that they just don't see very far in terms of what they can do and what they would have the opportunity of doing. And when you can come and help them to expand on that, it makes a tremendous difference. The ladies there that we had given sewing machines to in the past, they said they were all doing fine. Their lives had improved significantly as a result. And so we were really, really grateful to hear that. And some of the others that we helped in other ways are doing well also. So those reports were very good, and we were just really delighted to see and to hear about that.
I wanted specifically to ask you about the women that you were able to purchase the sewing machines for, because as we had discussed before, that's life-changing, culture-changing type of activity that you had initiated there. And I was very, very curious to know, how that was progressing, if the ladies are staying active, if they're being able to produce product, if they're being able to sell things and to improve their lot.
Yes. They gave a report and said just about all of them had improved their lives. They're now creating on their own. They got rid of the debt that was hanging over their heads in terms of just trying to finance a sewing machine or their schooling that they were going through. So that has improved quite a bit. And, it was just a very good, positive report about them. They're still working with the congregation, and that's good as well. We had, even in Williams area, there were, I've mentioned these sewing machines to a few people. And so now I have a couple of people who, at least one or two, that when I go, they say, well, do you have some ladies who need a sewing machine? I have a couple of ladies here who would like to buy a sewing machine for someone. And so we had 3 additional ones for the people in Williams area to be purchased. And so it's really, really making a difference. And the other part I did mention in terms of with William is we're planning a training center there where, just as you were saying, it will be designed to teach them the Bible, but also to teach them life skills. And William has a lot of experience in that because he's always looking for ways to help the people help themselves. He has this philosophy, we're not going to just give them things. We're going to help them or teach them how to fish instead of giving them fish. And that's really an admirable quality on his part, but he's willing to do the work, put in the time. And so we've got, a lot to do with that. And the fortunate thing is we got a good contractor who has given some good prices from my point of view, at least from what I can see. And at the same time, will work with us to modify whatever needs to be modified so it can be done. And we, of course, are taking it in stages, but it will get done. So we're really excited about that. And then to be able to, to teach them and to let them work and grow. So he's got, all the way from engaging them in learning how to farm, in making soap, cooking food, anything that they can do, they can both help themselves, help their families, and also commercialize, so that they do have some resources to take care of themselves. And that's going to be a plus. And the community is very responsive. even when they don't have a place. He has them. I mean, if you look out there, he'll have almost a whole community sitting out there in chairs just right in the open air, talking to them, teaching them, training them, etc. And so that part has been, very, very good. One
of the questions I wanted to ask you a question. I know that in the past I have visited with, pardon me, with missionaries to Nigeria, and they said that they would very often go into communities, and they would improve through doing some of the very things that you're talking about here in Ghana. They would initiate, what I would call public work, social works, that would dramatically begin improving the standard of living for the Christians that were there. But the Muslims in the area would come in and destroy the work of the Christians that was improving the life of the Christians, because the Muslims did not want people to see the results and the benefits of Christianity. So I was curious if there's any of that kind of Muslim resistance in the areas where you've been going.
As far as I can see, no, there has not been. As a matter of fact, it appears from everything I've seen and from what I've heard, the Muslim community in Ghana works quite well along with the Christian community. They seem to, I see them going to school together, the kids, going to school together. I see in the businesses that they interact with each other, and even, walking up and down the street, I see that. Of course, I do see mosques. That's a tough one to say, mosques, I guess. Yeah. But I see quite a few of them as I travel around. They're not very large, they're just small for the most part. But you do see them along the way and scattered, around pretty much all the areas. But I've not seen any type of animosity, any type of, just ill will or not getting along. And I've heard them say that they get along quite well with the Muslim community in Ghana. So I have, once we really get into something major, like once a building is up and you get people going in and training, I guess maybe that will show something else. But I do know that the situation, at least from what I've seen in the news and experience, and even in talking to a brother in Nigeria who is a minister, also runs a school of about 1,300 students. Now, he has told me about some of the attacks and the issues that they have with Muslims in Nigeria, but that has not been the case in Ghana, at least not as far as I can see. And I hope that, that it remains that way, that it remains, peaceful and cordial between the two, because, that would be a great opportunity for outreach when they start seeing some of these results. And just as you were saying, when they go in and do these kind of things, that's exactly what we're hoping to do. And we're already doing some things on a small scale that has really changed the lives of people there. I don't say a whole lot about that, but there are several people there who are making it compared to their standard of living as a result of the efforts that we've made in going there and what they're doing on the ground. So that's been helpful. I mean, even and maybe I shouldn't say that because that might be too personal. So I won't mention that. I'll just pass on by that. But I know that lives have been changed and that people have been able to do things that they otherwise would not have done. And that's not just from me alone. That's from the people who have been very generous in helping me to do those things, to support me going over there. Because I haven't done it alone. You and your wife have been a part of that. Men like Hogan Neubauer have been a part of that. And there are others whose names, I won't mention here just because I haven't talked to them and know how they like their business to be expressed. And then, some other things happened that made those trips possible. And so as a result, it has, it's been fruitful, and it's only going to be more so. And I'm really excited that we have been working. William, he has gone to town, and you're talking about a 3-hour drive from his place if there's no traffic, okay? And because we didn't get finished, I started doing it the week that I was there, but I should have started the first day I got there, and I waited till the last days that I was there trying to get this business taken care of, with setting up this nonprofit. And I just couldn't get everything done after 2 days of going. And so we decided that he would try to finish up. Well, he went on Monday and stayed there almost all day, trying to work back and forth with me, over the phone, over email, and et cetera. And we didn't get it done. And so he had to go back again today. And we still didn't quite get it done, but I don't think he's going to have to go back tomorrow, because we spoke to the lady and she said she pretty much had everything that she needed and could take care of it. So there's a slight chance he might have to go back tomorrow, but if not, then we got that done, and that'll be behind us. And so that's very, very good. It's very important, in trying to work and get that taken care of. So, but that's the kind of effort that they will put forth. And, I'm talking about just the trip itself is a challenge, because I've made the trip a couple of times going and coming, and it's no fun. It's not an unpleasant trip as long as the traffic's okay, but it's a distance. When you have to travel 3 hours, going, and then he's doing that in the midst of everything else that he has to do, but he's reaching out to do that. But he sees the advantage of it as well. He knows that the outcome is going to be a blessing, and has been a blessing, and is a blessing to them already. And so it's going to make a huge difference in their community. And the way they are is, if you come in and you show some type of initiative in doing something for the community that will make the community better, they are very, very eager to help you and assist you in making that happen. So they'll make concessions, accommodations, to do that. If they see, for example, in trying to put up this training center, well, they will, either lower the price of land or donate, something to help make that happen. And that's really, really good when you think about it with the person of limited resources like me, and like what we are able to do. But and we're trying to leverage and stretch everything that we can to make that happen. And it's coming about, little bit at a time, but eventually, it'll come to fruition, and we'll be up and rolling as far as that goes. And it's just exciting that, we'll have a base there where you've got the eschatology that's on two ends, and that is with Solomon, and of course with this work where William is, which has, he has much more access to the community from what I can see and observe between the two places. Now, I know Solomon gets around, et cetera, but the access to the community where people can just really come and gather seems to favor the area where William is. And so that makes it a little bit better for him. But both of them have tremendous opportunity where they are. And so we're just hopeful that, they both will get off the ground as far as that goes. Go ahead.
I started to say it's so refreshing and encouraging that you say that I took it the government officials are willing to make concessions, and they're willing to be of assistance when they know that you're there to actually help in the community. You're not there to try to take something from the community, but you're trying to help out. And so they're willing to accommodate you. That's very, very encouraging. It's getting to the point here in America where government officials will try to put as much red tape in the way of any religious function that they try to make it as difficult as possible. So it's very, very refreshing to hear, what you're saying there. And I wanted to ask you, we're running a little bit low on time here, and I know that you were starting to say something else, but I wanted to ask you what would you consider what would you consider the highlight of this trip, or maybe even to express it, what were the top three things that happened, doors that opened, opportunities given on this trip that just that stand out to you?
Well, I've already covered one, maybe two, and the first one was, of course, the awareness and the opportunity to really teach William so that you got a person of his influence and dedication that is willing to commit himself to learning and growing and is already asking for information so that he can take it and deliver it right back into the community. So that was a highlight from that situation. The other is, now you were talking about this, the government. We haven't gotten to the point where we've got, quote, the government involved from that point of view, but we are beginning to make headway with the local people, and even, what they would call the chiefs, et cetera, because William has access to all of them. Solomon has access to them. So when they hear about it, then they're the ones who are able to do that on a smaller scale. But in terms of trying to get this nonprofit set up where we can get in there, and once we get things going with the community, then it's going to have an impact. The first time I was there, I met a what do they call him? He was actually running for office, assemblyman, in one area, and we met another one in the area where William is. So we've got two people who are, they're not at the higher ranks of the local government, but they are there. And because they are there, they can have somewhat of a voice in expressing what's going on. They'll be the first people, because he was even there when we were teaching on one occasion. So they'll be the first people to take back some of what's happening. And when they start seeing a little bit of transformation in the community, then they can start using a little bit of their influence to maybe see if we can do some greater things, because, we're hoping to do that. The other would be, of course, seeing how the efforts that we put forth before are working out in the lives of the people, the report that, they're doing well, et cetera. And I guess, for the most part, to know that we are making some headway. There are people, even, the last time I was there when I had the debate, I've had a couple of people tell me that they watched the debate. One guy said he was basically a charismatic, and he says he watched the debate. And I said, man, I don't know how you could even get anything out of that debate as terrible as the audio was from it. But as a result, he has taught himself out of it, or learned his way out of, the charismatic movement in terms of, all these future prophecies, et cetera. And now he's a preterist. And I didn't know that while I was there. He shared that with me after I got back. And I asked him, I said, well, where were you? He said, I'm in a cry. I said, look, man, I was right there. I said, well, the next time I come, we'll have to spend some time. So he was excited about that. So hearing those kind of reports are good as well. But that's that, and just getting the groundwork done for what we are doing in the future is, I think, is the real highlight. Traveling and just commuting in Ghana is a challenge because of the poor infrastructure on roads. The heat, of course, can be quite taxing on you from time to time. And then if you do have to travel in traffic, one morning I was just trying to go across town, and it took 2.5 hours in traffic. I'm not talking about out of town. This was just across town. So it was quite a challenge. And when you're out there in that heat, and then the way they drive, it's more than a notion. You have to have a tremendous amount of patience, to be able to just maneuver in situations like that. But that was pretty much. Go ahead.
Well,
I thought you were going to say something.
The mental image of driving in Ghana, the images that I've seen on TV, and of course, unfortunately, sometimes you get a stereotypical image that is portrayed in the news and movies and what have you. That is not always the truth, and sometimes the actual real life truth of things is much better than what is portrayed on TV. So, but the stereotypical image is that it's just helter skelter, that it's get out of my way because here I come.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that goes on, but there are places where it's pleasant. Even the place I stayed the first time, this last time I was there, when I had to have the extended stay due to the debate, they were working on the road in that particular area, and that's one of the nicer areas. But that road was full of potholes. It was gravel. It was, it's almost like you're just riding an obstacle course just to get up and down the road, and it's uphill and winding as it goes. Well, before I left there, the last time, they had paved the road, and I'm telling you, it's just a smooth riding there. So they're making improvements, and and I try to watch the news regarding Ghana all the time about how they're improving infrastructure and housing, just things that will make it a lot better along the way. And, but they are making progress. It's one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. So it's not that they're not doing anything. They're working on it. It's just, it will just take time. The trip back was a little precarious. The first 3 times we went, there was no COVID test. So, of course, the first time there was no COVID test at all. But then the second time, we got out of there right as they were shutting down the airport. That was like March. I think it was March the 17th or something. And they shut the airports down either that day or the day after. We had just gotten out of there. And so everything was shut down, due to COVID. Well, and then the last time that we went for the debate, we didn't have to take a COVID test coming back. We had to take one leaving here. We had to take one upon arrival there. And that was it. And then all they did was check your temperature. Well, I'm thinking, Don, that that was going to happen this time. So I get to the airport 3 hours ahead of time, go over to check in, and they asked for my COVID test. I said, what COVID test? They said, before you can fly out of here, you got to have a COVID test. And I said, what? And they said, well, you can go right over to the airport clinic and take the test. Now, my flight left at 12:20. It was about 10 o'clock at that point. So I went over to the airport clinic. I talked to them, and they said, well, when is your flight out? And they said, well, before you can take the test, you've got to have a flight scheduled. Well, I knew at that point there was no way I was leaving that day. So I went back over. I had to walk back over, and this was no short distance. It was quite a decent walk. So I had to walk all the way back from the airport clinic. Fortunately, they let me keep my suitcases over in the clinic, so I didn't have to carry those back because I couldn't leave them in the airport.
Wow,
so I had to walk with
that.
I had to walk with the suitcases all the way over to this place, and then I left them in the. They said, well, you can leave your suitcases here. So I left them there, walked all the way back in the hot, sweaty heat, and had to change my flight to the next day. And fortunately, a couple of guys let me skip because they saw the predicament I was in. So they say, you go first. We'll let you go next. And it cost me an extra maybe $200 and some dollars. I think about $275 to upgrade my ticket for another flight. And but I got a flight the next day at the same time this flight was going to leave out, which was about 12:20 in the afternoon. And then after that, after getting the flight schedule, I had to walk back over to the airport clinic, take the test. And they said, well, the results will be back in 3 hours. Well, it happened to be a guy there. I guess I don't think he was from the U.S. He might have been from the U.K. He said, don't count on getting your results back in email within 3 hours. It's not going to happen. So I just chalked it up. I said, okay, I'm going to spend another night here. And I took the test. I went home, came back, and the next morning and got the results and was able to get on the plane. And so, flight was fine. Everything was fine. Got back to D.C., ready to get on the Southwest flight back home. They oversold the flight, canceled the flight because of some issue they had. So I had to stay in D.C. another night. Still couldn't get home. It took me 4 days to get home after that. And then when I finally get to Atlanta, after the last leg of this flight, because it flew from D.C., went into Tampa, and then from Tampa to Atlanta. Well, when I got to Atlanta, I'm waiting, I think 3 or 4 hours for the Memphis flight connection. And then about the time that we should have been boarding, they announced, well, the flight is late. And so there was another delay, another about hour or so delay. So it felt like I was never going to get home, but finally I did. And I'm really grateful for that. But overall, it was a good trip. A good foundation has been laid. I think we're now at a point where we can really build on, what has been happening. And again, taking the time to move from place to place, to just get things, and then all the work over the phones and everything and trying to communicate. It's a job. And then with limited resources, it's still, even more challenging. But again, I'm grateful for all the help and the assistance that we've had. And that's what has made a big difference. And we're looking forward to doing more in time to come. But again, I think a pretty good foundation has been laid. So that's pretty much, the trip. And now it's just a matter of, continuing to communicate and help them in studying and learning and just moving forward. So wait a minute, I lost Don. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. I just saw that his mic clicked off for some reason, so let's get him back on. Okay, there you are.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah. I got booted off for some reason, don't know why, but I was asking the question there based on everything that you've said and the good foundation that's been laid. I'm assuming that you're already making plans for a return trip at some point.
Yeah, at some point, but, Leora and I said we're going to go on just a trip for us, because these trips have been lots and lots of work. So we're going to probably just go somewhere for us before I go back. But yes, we are, I am making plans for a return trip because, the work would just be incomplete from that. And I hope to get a lot done even before I get back to the next trip. So yeah, that's going to be a staple in terms of work there until we get some things, solid and really start moving them forward. But it's exciting to me to be a part of something where you can see that the effort you're doing is really having an impact in the community. If you do something there, it's going to show in terms of an outreach that you're making somewhere.
Well, it's like I've said, I know it's tremendously exciting for you since you're part of the boots on the ground, so to speak. But it's also exciting for me just to hear and to know of the work that you're involved in. Jan and I have tried to support you in a limited way, financially, as much as we've been able to, and so that's gratifying. And most of all, it's so encouraging to know and to hear about the progress being made, the kind of progress that, as I have mentioned before, that is culture building, that is the type of growth, the kind of work that, you said something a while ago that is kind of an old axiom, and it's old, it's a cliche, but it's nonetheless absolutely teetotally true. Instead of giving somebody a fish, you teach them how to fish. And that's exactly and precisely what you're doing, and what the other William is doing. When you're teaching people life skills, when you are teaching them the principles of the gospel upon which those life skills are based, then that's putting the gospel at work. That's manifesting the gospel in a very, very concrete way so that they can see what it means to be a Christian. And as you suggested also, it will also enable all of their religious neighbors or non-religious neighbors to say, look at what those Christians are doing. Wow, that's amazing, and want to know more about it. You know, that's how the early church grew, partly is because their friends, their neighbors, their Jewish friends, neighbors, or pagans or whatever, could say, behold how they love one another. They could behold their good works, how they supported their friends, the widows, the orphans, and what have you. And that's exactly precisely what you're helping to set in place over there, and it's so exciting. So I'm out of a voice, and I appreciate the report, hearing from that report. Great to have you back, William. Hopefully I'll have my voice back next week, and we can continue our studies of the Lord's Word at that time. And with that, I'm going to sign off and say good night and God bless.
All right. Good night, everyone, and thanks for listening. Thank you for joining the Two Guys in a Bible radio broadcast. On behalf of Dunn Preston and myself, we'd like to say have a very pleasant day, and may God bless. Until next time, we'll see you on Fulfill Radio, a voice you can trust.